Okay, I wanted to talk about what makes an old growth forest. One of the telltale signs that we are in an old growth forest is this Pacific yew. Now this, from just looking at it, you would go, well, what makes this scraggly tree look any different than any of the other trees? Well, this is Taxus brevifolia. It is one of the slowest growing species of evergreens. Super important tree to the Native Americans. They made their bows from them. This is a really important medicinal tree. It fights cancer. This tree is way older than you think. The tallest Pacific yew on record is 40 feet tall and was nearly 1,000 years old. This tree, as far as I can tell, it's probably 35 feet tall. My guess would be 700 years old is this tree, and it's small. But you'll only find Pacific yews in old growth forests because they grow so incredibly slow. All right, we're at another really old growth tree, Douglas fir, Pseudomenzii. This tree is at one point 175 feet tall, but it has been struck by lightning numerous times. As you can see, the burn scars on the outside of the bark. One of the consequences of being such a tall tree is that it catches the most wind, and it's a magnet for lightning. If you look at the first branch at the top of this tree is at least probably 130 feet tall. And a couple years ago, the top of the tree blew over in a windstorm. But there used to be a big bald eagle's nest on the top of this tree.
So how old would this little baby be then?
So Douglas firs grow 2 to 3 feet a year. This is about a 3-year-old tree.
Wow, that's amazing. Could you tell us a little more about some of the other native species we have in this park?
So really great question. We can start here. This is called ocean spray. It has really beautiful cream flowers in the spring, and then they kind of hold on into the fall. It's deciduous. We have trailing blackberry that is a native, and that's what's in the ground, on the ground here. We have Pacific sword fern, which is a staple in the Northwest. And covering that is evergreen huckleberry. Another really super cool plant that you don't see in a natural environment, but you do see it in an old growth forest. This is our native dogwood, Cornus natalii. Another unique characteristic of Hutt Park is we have Pacific rhododendron that's growing here and there throughout. You only really see this in old growth forests.
So it seems like there's a lot of really old trees in this park. What makes a tree an old growth?
Well, there are, in this 4.5 acre property, we've identified 21 old growth trees. And defining that, characteristics are like a Douglas fir, the bark gets deeply veined and really thick over time. And then the branches don't start until really high up, maybe 80 to 100 feet high, because of over time, it's just shed all the lower branches with the windstorms over the course of the years. Forest is defined as any tree that's in excess of 200 years old. And this Douglas fir, I would estimate to be between 300 to 500 years old. Some other really interesting old growth characteristic plants is our native huckleberry. This is a Sitka ash, which grows from Alaska all the way down to Oregon. We have big leaf maple that is sprouting naturally, not planted by us. Low Oregon grape, which is another native and a characteristic of old growth forest. One of the really cool plants that's in here is called redwood sorrel, or just Oregon sorrel. It's a Pacific Northwest native, but you don't find it in second growth. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about and bring attention to is the Pacific Madrona, which, if it's not, it should be on the endangered species list. They only like to grow in specific conditions. They like it dry, sandy, rocky, and within 5 miles of the coastline. And what happened is development happened, and these trees do not like to be disturbed. They do not like the environmental conditions that have changed, the asphalt, the heat. We've changed the environment, and they're not doing well in the Pacific Northwest. They are nearly impossible to propagate. They do really, really well in undisturbed areas like here at Hutt Park, where it's never been logged and they're left. They're pretty much thriving here, but not so much in other places across the Northwest.
Jesse, we want to thank you very much for taking your lunch hour on this wet day here at Hutt to give us this fascinating tour of one of our great Edmonds parks.
All right.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.